Hi guys, welcome back to the Social Tune. And today we take a look at the latest album from the XX, I See You.
When and where did we go cold? I thought I had you on hold.
So in order for me to talk about my relationship with this band, we need to travel back in time to 2012. At the time, one of the biggest songs around and one of my favorite songs at the time was Take Care by Drake and Rihanna. Now, I loved that song so much back then that I felt compelled to research it. And that's when I learned that the beat had been taken from a song by a British producer, Jamie XX, from the band The XX. And the rest is history. I checked out their album Coexist and really liked it. Then I checked out their debut and loved it. But 3 years later, when I heard that Jamie XX was going to be releasing a solo project, I went into it with high expectations and it just blew me out of the water. As In Color remains one of the best albums of 2015 and a damn classic in my book. It wasn't overstated, especially for an electronic album, but maybe that's why it struck me so much. With a ton of experimentation and deceptively simple lyrics over some of the most beautiful beats I have ever come across. So with all that in mind, you'd think that I See You would be one of my most anticipated albums of 2017. But I have to admit, I was a little worried about this one. I wasn't in love with the lead single On Hold, and despite Jamie XX saying that the production would be a lot closer to In Color than their previous albums, could lightning really strike twice? The answer? Hell yes it did. I expected to like this album, but it just blew me away, and I can easily say it's my favorite of the XX's discography to date. Now, do I like it more than In Color? Well, time will tell, but there's definitely the possibility that this album will stick with me in the same way that one did. It's just phenomenal. And to explain why, we need to start with the production.
They say you are dangerous, but I don't care. I'm going to pretend that I'm not scared.
Now, while I definitely see touches of In Color across this entire album, especially on songs like A Violent Noise, this album is much more conventional. Like Lips, which I've seen a lot of people tear into as just being a dull pop song, but which I found gorgeous. But the point is, you won't find anything quite as outlandish as Gosh or The Rest Is Noise. Also, it's important to note that this isn't an electronic album, this is much closer to dream pop, but with the production of Jamie XX, which makes it an incredible experience. From the opening track Dangerous, with its horns and unforgettable hook, you realize this is a very different beast from any of their previous projects. Although I will admit that it's one of the more unique tracks on the album, as the second track, Say Something, is much more mainstream, sounding like the best Calvin Harris song I've ever heard. Seriously, if they wanted to push for a hit, that song is the perfect candidate. That or the unforgettable hook on I Dare You could make for a huge success, as they're both instantly memorable and gorgeous. And that's before you get to the bass line and subtle guitars on Performance, bound to be one of the most beautiful songs you'll hear all year. And as if to remind us that this is a dream pop album, the moment the beat dropped into those gleaming keys on Replica just took my breath away. Incredible song, and don't even get me started on the crescendo of horns and the piercing tones, accompanied by the spacious percussion on the closer Test Me, another breathtaking track. Really, the only song here that I didn't absolutely adore was On Hold. And even then, the only part I wasn't wild about was the sample distorted vocals on the chorus. It's still a really good song. So Jamie definitely brought his A game, but what about the rest of the band?
They all say I will become a replica. Your mistake.
The other two members, for those of you who don't know, are Romy Madley Croft and Oliver Sim. Now for those of you more familiar with Jamie XX, both of them showed up on In Color. She on the songs Loud Places and Seesaw, he on the song Stranger in a Room. Both of them are really good singers, but they always sound best over their own production, which they definitely do here. And while I personally feel that a lot of people underestimate just how good Oliver Sim can be, there's no denying it. Romy Madley Croft, or just Romy, is breathtaking on this album, especially on the songs that she handles on her own, like Performance or Brave for You, which is understandable considering she has writing credits on both, which I'll get to a bit later. But because it's me, some of my favorite moments are when they sing together, even on Hold, where they mostly sing opposite each other. But the best moment of harmonization is on Replica, which is spacious and gorgeous, especially with Romy's vocals echoing in the background. And I don't care what anyone else says, they both sound amazing on Lips. It's a damn great pop song. Their respective parts on A Violent Noise are fantastic, although in that case I would have to give a slight edge to Oliver Sim, just because that song really does play well into his wheelhouse. And the same can be said for every single track here. They both do a fantastic job across the board. But now we have to handle the concept of this album and why this is the band's most ambitious album to date.
Singing, oh, oh, go on, I dare you. Oh, oh, I dare you.
To understand this album, you need to understand the two characters of Romy and Sim, our two singers. If you've heard them on the XX's previous albums or on In Color, you may have picked up on this. Both of them are shy introverts, but are made distinct by the way they portray that shyness, with Sim acting disaffected despite being incredibly insecure, and Romy wearing her shyness on the surface but forcing herself to come out of her shell a few times and to try new things. And they play off each other extremely well. Like on Dangerous, where they both see the other as dangerous despite how similar they are. Or on Say Something Loving, when they both find it hard to convey their true feelings to the other. And then you have the moments where they're dealing with their own neuroses, like Croft's terror at going out into the new world and masking all of that with her performance. Or Sim's fear of falling into a never-changing routine and becoming stagnant on Replica. Heck, on Brave for You, Romy vows to honor her deceased father by continuing to improve herself as a person. And I do really like the lyrics on Hold, as he waited too long to call her back and she moved on. Now these are some incredibly potent themes, especially for a bit of an introvert like myself. I really relate to a lot of these scenarios. But the moment where everything snaps into focus comes on the closer Test Me.
Just take it out on me. It's easier than saying what you mean. Test me.
At first I saw this as a song where both introverts test each other to go out into the world and become better as individuals. But the XX actually did an interview where they said that Test Me was a reflection of their dynamic as a band. Testing each other, pushing each other to new heights, to keep experimenting. And then you realize that a lot of these songs about the two relating to each other and the world around them could apply to the band and their music. A Violent Noise is about not being afraid to create weird, outlandish music, even though it may not go over well with their fans. The fear of repetition on Replica is a metaphor for artistic stagnance. Dangerous is about taking those risks as a band despite the possible repercussions. And I Dare You is a challenge to each other to continue forwards as a band, content with the past, but not resting on their laurels, instead turning their eyes to the future. Awesome. So yeah, I adore this album, and it's bound to be one of the best albums released this year. The XX took me by surprise in the best possible way, and I cannot recommend this highly enough, which is why I'm giving it a strong 9 out of 10. Check this one out, guys. It's bound to be one of the best pop albums released this year, and it's a welcome addition to their discography. And on that note, thank you all very much for watching. If there are any other albums coming out in the next month or so, please post them in the comments so that I can listen to them and possibly review them. Also, I just released my worst hit songs of 2007 list, so definitely check that out here. Please subscribe so you don't miss a thing. And until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tunes, signing off.